Red, Cynthia, Volo, Kieran. These are usually what people refer to as the hardest Pokemon fights in the main series games. But how hard are they actually? In this video, I'm going to cover each of the 4 trainers' Pokemon teams and grade them off of these 3 categories. Team composition. This basically means if the team has good coverage and if the team is also good defensively. Noteworthy Pokemon. Basically, this is Pokemon that I personally think are worth noting and Pokemon that make the actual fight hard. And finally, there's notable things, which is basically any miscellaneous stuff like held items and etc. Each category will be rated out of 10, so in total it's a 30-point scale. So let's get into this. Here we go. Now first we have Red. Now I'm going to use Red's HGSS team for this since that's the one everyone usually talks about. And one more thing, I'm not going to take levels into consideration since let's just assume you fight them at an even playing field. So in this case, being under level isn't a scenario here for what makes a fight difficult. Now let's get into it. A positive, I do like how Red has Blizzard Lapras considering that Hill is active for this battle, and this makes Blizzard 100% accurate, which I think is good. Though half of his Pokemon run Blizzard, but we'll get into that soon. And I also like how Red utilizes Light Ball on Pikachu. And this is the only Pokemon on his team that runs a held item, but I'm not surprised why. Also, Red has a Fire Water Grass core, which is very good in a team composition. And that's about it for the positives. The flaw I have with Red's team is that 4 Pokemon on his team have recharge moves, which I don't think is optimal moveset wise. Also, some of his Pokemon have mixed sets, which is fine to an extent, but at times it can suck. Like, why does Snorlax have special moves with that special attack stat? Instead of Shadow Ball, Crunch is way better since they hit the same offensively anyways. But yeah, on to the ratings. For team composition, I'm giving him a 6. 4 of his Pokemon have recharge moves, but he hits almost all types for super effective damage except for Electric, which baffles me that none of his Pokemon have Earthquake. Motherfucking Earthquake, which is very shocking. His notable Pokemon are Lapras with Stab 100% accurate Blizzard, and of course the Pikachu carrying the Light Ball. His other guys are decent enough, so I'll give him a 7. And there's really no things Red has going for him, so I'll give him a generous 5 due to the fact that he has a Fire Water Grass core in the Kanto starters. And thus Red has a total score of 18 out of 30, which is just above half, but doesn't really seem that great. Next up is Sinnoh's champion Cynthia. For this one, we'll be using Cynthia's BDSP final rematch team that has the Porygon Z. Now, onto the positives. I really like Cynthia's team as a whole in general. For starters, every one of her Pokemon carry a held item, and they have EVs, which is huge. She has a Dragon Fairy Steel core, which is arguably better than Fire Water Grass. She has a T-Wave Paraflinch Togekiss, a Marvel Scale Milotic holding a Flame Orb, and a Yache Berry Garchomp with Swords Dance and Poison Jab to beat Fairy types. I'd say her only flaw is Porygon Z, and even then, that's a severe minor flaw. Hyper Beam is pretty sus, but you gotta realize this is adaptability Hyper Beam. So one hit from this thing and your ass is getting sent to the Shadow Realm. And let's not forget the legendary Bolt Beam coverage she has on a singular Mon. Now time to give her a score. For team composition, I'm giving her a strong 9. She hits every type for super effective damage, and she has a strong Dragon Fairy Steel core with no type overlap at all. If she didn't have a recharge move on her team, then her team would be a perfect 10. Noteworthy Pokemon. It'll be Garchomp and Milotic for this one. Fun fact, their sets remain unchanged from the first time you fight her in BDSP. And her other mons are very strong too, especially, so I'll give her a 9 here too. As for notable things, she has held items on her Pokemon, and she has perfect IVs and EVs for a fight that is not in a battle facility. And that's pretty fucking insane. Having held items and perfect IVs is one thing, but perfect EVs is crazy work. So I'm giving her a perfect 10 here, which gives her a total score of 28 out of 30. A well-deserved score for Cynthia. Now before we move on with the video, why not subscribe? My goal is to get 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so if you guys would subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Now back to the video. Now third, we have Volo from Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now this one is very weird considering PLA has a very drastic different battling style compared to literally every other game. No abilities, no held items, etc. Secondly, if it's not obvious, he uses more than 6 Pokemon. In fact, he technically uses 8 Pokemon since Giratina in its origin form are practically 2 separate Pokemon. Now for the positives. Like with Cynthia, he surprisingly has no type overlap for his initial 6, though the movesets are far from ideal. Though considering moves like Earthquake aren't in this game, I'll give him a pass. But there's no excuse as to why 2 of his Pokemon don't even have 4 moves. At this point in the game, it's the fucking post game, man. What are you doing? Come on. As for a ranking, team composition is a 7 since he does hit every type for super effective damage and is held back by some questionable movesets and the fact that some of his guys only have 3 moves. For noteworthy Pokemon, he uses Giratina and its origin form as practically 2 separate Pokemon, so the fact that he has a restricted legend says a lot, but twice is crazy work, so I'm gonna have to give him a perfect 10 just for that. And notable thing is that he fights you with 8 Pokemon technically, 2 of which are legendary, so I'll give him a 9, which gives Volo a final score of 26 out of 30. Not bad at all. And last but not least, we have Kieran. Now Kieran is an interesting case considering you fight him in a double battle, and double battles by nature are much harder than single battles since chances are your team was built for single battling, but anyway, let's get into it. Now for the positives, one thing that caught my eye were the Incineroar with Intimidate in the Grimmsnarl that can set up Light Screen and Reflect. Although these are great Pokemon to have, the Incineroar's moveset is just not it. It does have Brick Break for coverage, which is fine I guess since I don't think the AI is capable of using switching moves like U-Turn or Parting Shot effectively, so I think it's fine here. But I felt like he could have had knockoff on his Incineroar, and I think the Grimmsnarl should have had a Light Clay instead of Focus Sash to extend the screens for a longer duration of time. Though the rest of his team is kinda suboptimal. His Dragonite is primarily a special attacker for the most part. Yeah, you have range set up with Politoed, but at some point, why not just use a Salamence instead? It hits harder and you have Intimidate. And also, we see the dreaded Hyper Beam Porygon Z again. Only difference is it's a double battle, which makes it even more unoptimal. I feel like he should have just had an Eviolite Porygon 2 instead to set up Trick Room, since most of his team is relatively slow. And I don't really understand why the Hydrapple is Terra fighting. Like, I know the lore, but having something like Terra Poison fits this move better since you actually have coverage for fairy types. Now on to the scores. For team composition, I'm giving him a 7. He does hit every type for super effective damage, and he uses Weather and Intimidate Fake Out with screen strats, but it could have been higher if the movesets on some Pokemon were just slightly better. For noteworthy Pokemon, he does have Incineroar and Grimmsnarl, which are VGC staples, and also has other decent guys, so I'll give him a 9 for this one. And for notable things, he has items on every one of his Pokemon, which counts for something, so I'll give him an 8, which brings his final rating to 24 out of 30, which is okay. Now let's finally rank each boss from lowest to highest rating. In last place, we have Red with 18 out of 30. I'm not really too surprised with the rating. The movesets were non-optimal, which was his main downfall. In third place, we have Kieran with a rating of 24 out of 30. He also could have been a lot higher if again, the movesets and even some Pokemon were changed to be better options. In second place, we have Volo with a rating of 26 out of 30. Honestly, Giratina just carries him hard. And coming in first place, we have Cynthia with a final rating of 28 out of 30. I mean, was it really that surprising? She would have scored a perfect score if not due to the fact that she carries a recharge move, which is a bit sus. Honestly, if she gave her Spiritomb Calm Mind over either Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse and gave her Porygon Z Tri-Attack over Hyper Beam and gave it a Life Orb, this would have been a perfect 30 out of 30 score. So yeah, in my opinion, I think BDSP Final Rematch Cynthia is the hardest boss in Pokemon, not counting battle facilities of course. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel, join the Discord server, like the video, and comment down below what do you think is the hardest boss in Pokemon. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.